as I sat with my family for our Thanksgiving meal, it kind of dawned on me, like I had this moment that the holiday season is in full effect. And every year this happens, but this year especially, where you're so busy, you're doing this, that, and the other, you pause for a minute. Like I'm there putting a piece of turkey in my mouth, and then it kind of like just hit me like, it's almost Christmas. And not only that, but this year is almost over. And I'm just sitting there like having this, I don't know if it's an epiphany or a revelation, apocalypse, I don't know what it is, but I'm just sitting there, everybody's enjoying their meal, and I'm thinking this like, wow, it's almost December. And already we're journeying through Advent. Christmas is not far behind. We know how this drill goes. We got New Year's coming up and so forth, which can be so overwhelming for a lot of people. But then I thought back to that idea of the holiday season. Just that idea of holiday, and it brings so much ease to the tension that can come with the season. Every time I think about the holidays, I think of home. And I think that's because there's really no better place to be during the holidays than at home. As they say, home is the place that you grow up wanting to leave, and then you grow old wanting to come back to. I mean, there's something about being home where everything's just right. Everybody who's on Zoom right now, tuning in from home, you know what I mean. You can just wake up in the morning. You can just, as long as you got a nice shirt on, sit behind the screen, and you're good to go. Something about being at home, you know, we're surrounded by people that we love and trust. There's that feeling of comfort and stability and safety. It's a place that you want to be. But it's so interesting, after talking with so many people this year, what I found is that these past 2 years have been a time when a lot of people have felt away from home in their own homes. And the more stories I've listened to, the more people I hear sharing their experience of feeling uneasy or in a place that they don't want to be in. And it's been the total opposite of being at home. Like if home is this place of comfort, then these past 2 years have been uncomfortable. If home is this place of safety and assurance, then this past 2 years has been a time of danger for a lot of people, and struggle and uncertainty. With the pandemic, we all know this feeling that I'm talking about. In the Bible, we call this going into exile. In exile, everything is disorienting. You're in the unknown. And it might be strange to label an entire year this way, or 2 years even. But the truth is, for many people around the world, these past few years felt like an exile. We felt away from home in our own homes. Nothing felt normal. Nothing was normal. Nothing was the way that it used to be or had always been. And for a lot of people, worries became struggles and challenges became reality. I mean, we're here in the same place with the similar people, and yet nothing was normal. Everything was off. I mean, how many times have we been in the unknown this year? And it's this feeling, this feeling of being away from home and discomfort and the pain that comes with it that our passage is speaking to today. Jeremiah went around his town warning his people over and over again that the exile was on its way. He told his people that they would be uncomfortable. He told them that they would be miserable even, that they were about to lose everything real soon, and that life was about to change for the worse. And just like that, the Babylonians came in and they destroyed everything. They brought down the walls that were protecting the people. They stomped all over the temple that the people loved so much. They burned down the mighty city of David. Everything they once had was now gone. Their homes, their schools, their protection. The water wells had run dry. The crops had burned down. The harvest was no more. And just like that, nothing was the same. And just when you thought that things couldn't get worse, they did. The Israelites were forced out of their own homeland, out of their home, kicked out of their own country. as they were led astray like animals to a foreign place. This is a nation that has been ripped away from its home. A group of people that have been forcefully taken away from the place that they belong to. They went from living in the promised land that we read about throughout all of the Hebrew scriptures, to being exiled from that very land. Now, just like that, they felt far from God, far from home, far from comfort, far from family and love, far from the land flowing with milk and honey, the land of fruitfulness and endless care and provisions, the land of God. And you can feel their pain as they're sitting next to the rivers of Babylon, as you're reading them in the Psalms. Everything is gone, lost every single thing they own. And they're sitting next to this river and they're crying as they remember the land that they grew up in. People that have been stripped of everything. They're sitting by this river, the Psalm says, and they're captives. The people that defeated them are demanding them to sing a song, almost mocking them. And they say, we have no more song left in us. We have no more music in our souls. Their instruments they have hung up on the trees. And they're asking themselves, how can we sing a song of God after what just happened? How can we sing a song in the middle of this oppression, battling depression, completely emptied of hope and optimism, removed from our home? How can we sing a song? Life sucked. It was the worst possible thing that you could ever encounter. They felt rejected. They felt humiliated and alone. And to make matters worse, their God, the God that had promised them land and descendants, the God that they had worshiped and praised for so long, the one and only true God that they had proclaimed out to the world, was nowhere to be found. It seemed like God had let them down. Just think for a minute the sort of pain and misery and hardship that these people are going through. I feel like for so many people around the globe, these past few years have been just that. The pandemic hit and we found ourselves in this foreign, uncomfortable place. Some of us sad and lonely with this feeling that no one is there to help us. And I don't know if I'm just being over dramatic, but this year we've wrestled with fears and uncertainties and burdens like never before. We've struggled in school, we've struggled at work, we've struggled at church, at home. There isn't a place that we haven't struggled in. We've battled to overcome trials in our own lives. We struggle in our health. I'm scrolling through Facebook the other day and I'm seeing that for so many people who've lost jobs, who've lost loved ones, who've lost hope, this year felt like they've been exiled from God's very presence, away from home, away from that feeling of comfort, away from that feeling of joy and normalcy and hope. And to make things worse, while they're in their misery, we have other people who are telling them, forcing them to sing songs of joy. We're told by so many people to rejoice, even though we know that something isn't right. Even though we're too tired and we're planted by the river of our own tears with all our hope flowing downstream and our joy hung up on the trees, drying out in a foreign place. And this is where our passage comes in. Life is not going so well. Things are not looking so good. The Israelites are about to be in the worst possible situation. And it's into this bleak and dark place that Jeremiah writes our passage today, and he pens these words. The days are coming when our God, the God of righteousness, the God of promise, will rescue us. He says the days are coming. It's almost here. It's right on the horizon. We're in the worst possible situation right now, but the days are coming when our Savior, The same Savior who got us through slavery in Egypt, who heard our cries in the wilderness, who helped us through seas and over mountains. The days are coming, he says, when our God of righteousness will get us through our exile. God says to Jeremiah, tell my people that I will cause a righteous branch to spring up for David, and he shall exalt justice and righteousness in the land. He says that the house of David, which has already been cut down, their king, God's chosen one, is no more. He's eliminated from this land. But God is saying, I can bring life out of death. He says a branch will sprout. The days are coming when the sun will shine on your faces again. This phrase, the righteous branch, when you're reading through the Hebrew scriptures, you see it used over and over again. The prophets, they would use it throughout the scriptures to express the promise, the faithfulness of God. When things went wrong in the life of the people, they would turn to this promise. When catastrophes struck, they would hold on to this hope. When famine came, when wars broke out, they would look forward to the day when this righteous branch would come and save them. And we see here Jeremiah building on this same image of hope, the righteous branch that God would send to save his people. And he's trying to encourage his brothers and sisters that are caught up in the struggle that is exile. No matter how bad and how hopeless it may be, he's trying to tell them that the days are coming, that this is not the end of our story, that the worry and the discomfort that we're journeying through right now is not the end of our journey. He's trying to tell his brothers and sisters who are sitting by that river, crying their tears out, just lamenting everything that they have lost. He says the pain that you're going through right now, whatever it may be, the exile that you're facing right now is not the end of the road, because the days are coming. He says the worst thing is never the last thing, because there is always hope with God. When you read through this passage, you get this feeling like God is speaking through the prophet in the same way that a parent does to a scared child. You know, when kids are crying and they're afraid and they need to hear the voice of their parent. And God is saying through the prophet, with this love that he has for his people, that I will bring you back home. That I will bring you back to that feeling of normal. That I will bring you back to that feeling of peace. That I will bring you back to that feeling of comfort, because of my everlasting love for you. Because of my promise to be your God. God says, I will draw you out of that tough place that you're in and don't want to be in. For so many of us, these past 2 years came with hardships and pains like never before. And we went through things that we never thought we could get through. And yet, here we are, on the brink, the threshold of yet another Advent season, counting on God's love to bring us back home, bring us out of a season that felt like an exile from the norm, from the comfort, an exile from the familiarity and the safety of being at home. Counting on God's love to restore in us joy and dancing and abundance, to bring us out of loss and misery and pain, to build us up, to build our faith up, to build our spirits up, to build us strong as we journey through this exile experience. Today, the same prophet that promised God's very own people plans of prosperity and plans of care and a brighter future is promising a way forward for all God's people. In this season of Advent, this season of waiting and anticipating with hope that Emmanuel, our Savior, is coming. And so this Advent season, I invite you to join in the wonder of this season. The wonder that begins with the greatest news of all, that no matter where you find yourselves today, whether in the hills or the valleys, that God is faithful to get us through and to save us. That whatever exile you've been battling through, whether it be this pandemic or panic in your life, that this season of Advent be a homecoming season out of that rough place and a return home to the safety and the assurance of our Messiah, Emmanuel, God who is with us. Let us go to God in prayer.